Good evening, everyone. Happy new month. Back to our tutorial for the day. You can see the drawing that I'm drawing on the screen. I edited it and then applied my grid lines. So after transferring the grid lines on my paper, I began with my hatches, then my cross hatch shading, and I needed to blend it, so I began to start with my brush for the first layer of my shading. Some people start, if you see some artists, their work, they start shading one side of the face, but I like doing everything together, but not, it depends on the drawing I'm doing. It depends. For example, this drawing I'm doing is not too big, but if it's a very big portrait, I will start half of the face before accomplishing everything. So if you notice, I'm applying my stippling, or you can call it pointillism, shading, in order to get my detailed parts of the face. The dark area of the hair, I used charcoal pencil because I needed to get a very dark area for that hairline. Then I continued as I'm blending with my tissue paper, brush, cutting board. I continued to add my cross hatch and hatches in order to create darker layers. Then you can see me, I'm using my eraser to highlight. I use eraser to highlight areas that I need to be brighter in my drawing, and because I'm using needlepoint paper, it has an already detailed, it creates its own detail for your drawing, but it depends on the one you want to use. Actually, why I'm using it is because that's the one that is available where I bought this paper, and I knew I can make use of it, so I decided to use it, although it will not really look that good. But since I know how to use it, it depends. If you know how to use it, you go for it. So I continued even to the next side. I continued to use my cross hatch shading. There are many ways you can create a shading. You get, there are many ways you can blend your shading. Some will just pick their grinded shading with their brush and then they are done. So here's the point where I shade my clothes. You have to make sure everything tallies with the grid lines according to the original, that's the reference of your drawing. Make sure everything tallies with the grid lines according to the reference you're drawing from. So just as you can see, there is no specific way of shading. You have to shade carefully, starting with a light shading before you enter a dark shading, especially for those areas that are kind of mixed up with, like these clothes, and some sides are dark, some sides are light, so you don't need to start with dark immediately. You have to start it gradual. Now if you watch carefully, you see the hatches that I created on these clothes and the cross hatch that I also created. They are for the first layer. Then what I'll do is to blend it with either a light brush or just use tissue paper so that everything will be smooth, and then you can use your eraser to highlight those light areas that you need. But meanwhile, and mind you, blend only those areas that have dark, that are dark or have a dark shading, and you continue to add up more blendings with your grinded or powdered graphites until they get darker and until it's being related with your original copy or your reference photo. Now, if you can remember earlier in the course of our tutorial in this group chat where I taught you guys about blending your charcoal shading, you can also use your finger tip to do that. As you can see me doing this video, I'm using my fingertip to create a nice blend, and because I'm using needlepoint paper, so I needed to use my hand in order to align the charcoal shading. So if you notice in this drawing, you see that I didn't trace all the parts at once. I took them one after the other. After accomplishing one part, I go to the next.